Hi, let's talk about endometriosis. Welcome to ENDO101, a series of videos I'll be making all about endometriosis. My motivation for making these videos is I have endometriosis myself. I was diagnosed, I think, about 4 years ago. And in that time, even in doctors' offices, even in specialists' offices, the amount of misinformation or lack of awareness about endometriosis is astonishing and disappointing. So I want to help fix that by putting out accurate, research-based, peer-reviewed information out into the world. So that's what I'm here to do. There is a lack of research on endometriosis, and because of that, patients have kind of turned to more of a community-based approach, and that can be really helpful, but that also means some of the information that's out there isn't necessarily fact-checked. And so I really want this video to only be things that are proven to be true, unless otherwise stated that it's, anecdotal. I just want to keep it factual over here. Up until this point, I just didn't have my glasses on because I'm just not really vibing with the mascara and glasses combination, but I have to read stuff off the screen now. I didn't think that part through. What is endometriosis? According to the World Health Organization, endometriosis is a disease in which tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus, where it's not supposed to. Endometriosis is known to affect 1 in 10 people assigned female at birth, but it's pretty widely agreed upon that if we had a better understanding of the disease and more people were diagnosed a bit quicker, we would find that it's much more common than that. This article, which was published in Frontiers in Surgery, a peer-reviewed academic journal, takes a look at what's going on at the cellular level with this endometriosis tissue. It says, this condition is considered a benign disorder, but exhibits cellular proliferation, cellular invasion, and neoangiogenesis. I know those are really big words, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I knew what those meant at all when I first read that, but I looked them up, so you don't have to. Cellular proliferation is when cells grow and divide to create new cells. Cellular invasion is when cells extend into neighboring tissue. Neoangiogenesis is when cells create their own blood vessels to provide blood supply for themselves. These are all mechanisms usually seen in cancer cells. This study is saying that endometriosis cells can divide and multiply to create new cells, can invade surrounding healthy tissues to further the spread of endometriosis, and may even create their own blood cells. It's pretty safe to say that on a cellular level, endometriosis can behave similarly to cancer. Diagnosing endometriosis. There are different kinds of imaging that may pick up endometriosis lesions, such as an MRI, but it's also completely possible to have endometriosis and have it not seen on these tests. And because of that, the only thing that is considered a definitive way to diagnose endometriosis is a laparoscopic surgery. In a laparoscopy, there's a thin rod with a camera on the end called a laparoscope that's inserted into small incisions made on the patient's abdomen. These incisions a lot of times are made in or around the belly button, at least when laparoscopic surgeries are done to diagnose and or remove endometriosis. I know this type of surgery is done for other reasons, and I'm not exactly familiar with every kind of laparoscopic surgery. I'm specifically speaking on when they're done for endometriosis. So this surgery would be done to diagnose endometriosis and to remove endometriosis lesions and adhesions through excision or ablation. Even after a surgery with the most skilled, experienced surgeon, it might grow back and you might need more surgeries. I personally have had 3 surgeries, and unfortunately, my doctor does think it's growing back again, but I'm on strike right now. I'm not, we're not doing surgery right now. I had one like a year ago, a year and some change, and we're good for a second. But unfortunately, that is kind of an internal decision that a lot of us with endometriosis have to kind of live with. Do I want another surgery, or do I want to live with these lesions inside of me and with pain? But also, the surgery isn't guaranteed to get you out of pain. I do have plans to make another one of these ENDO101 videos just focusing on that surgery in particular, my experience with it, and with that recovery period after the surgeries. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. That way I can prioritize that video. Let's debunk some common misconceptions about endometriosis. Misconception number 1 is that endometriosis only causes pain during periods, or it's a period disorder. Pain and symptoms vary from person to person with endometriosis. That's important to keep in mind, but it's not uncommon for us to have chronic pelvic pain that spans outside of menstruation. For example, personally, for me, some days are better than others, but there's not a single day that pelvic pain doesn't make some sort of appearance in my life. It's not just my period. So, yeah, that's fun. Misconception number 2, endometriosis only affects the uterus or pelvis. The phenomenon itself of endometriosis is characterized by tissue similar to the lining of the uterus growing outside the uterus. So it's definitely not just a uterus disorder, but endometriosis can grow anywhere in the body. It has been found on every organ. It's a lot more than a pelvic issue. And even when there's a patient that only has endometriosis lesions in the pelvic area, their symptoms can affect their entire body. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of what all those symptoms are later in the video, but what you need to know now is that endometriosis is a full body disorder. Misconception number 3, birth control cures endometriosis. Okay, well, first and foremost, for this section of the video, I need to say there is no known cure for endometriosis at this time. There are different options that have been found to help manage the pain and other symptoms of endometriosis. These things are not cures. The best treatment option for the pain and the symptoms of endometriosis will vary from person to person. The laparoscopic surgery that we discussed is one of those treatment options. Birth control is another. Some people find that birth control helps manage their period, and that alone can be huge. For someone having debilitating periods, having a shorter period, a lighter period, no period would greatly impact their quality of life. It can also help with regulating hormones and otherwise help their endo symptoms. There are other patients with endometriosis that find birth control does not help them whatsoever. Either way, it's for symptom management. There is not a known cure. And ultimately, it's really important to have a very individualized approach when you're trying to manage endometriosis. Every case of endo and every body is so different. Misconception number 4, hysterectomies cure endometriosis. So once again, there's no cure for endometriosis. And many people have hysterectomies and will continue to have endometriosis grow because it's a cellular event that happens independently from the uterus. However, there are also patients that will have endometriosis and will get a hysterectomy and will have a really big improvement in their symptoms, in their pelvic pain. So it is a valid resource in trying to treat the pain and symptoms caused by endometriosis. It's also pretty important to note here that adenomyosis is a common comorbidity for endometriosis. We'll be getting into later what comorbidity means. If you're a little tripped up on that, don't worry. Adenomyosis is diagnosed and cured by a hysterectomy. So sometimes you'll have a patient with endometriosis that has pelvic pain, uterine pain, they have suspected adenomyosis, and they will get a hysterectomy, they will get their adenomyosis diagnosed and cured, and they will get some relief from the pain that could have also been related to endometriosis. These reasons combined lead a number of endometriosis patients to get hysterectomies despite it not being a cure for endometriosis. Misconception number 5, pregnancy cures endometriosis. No, pregnancy does not cure endometriosis. Sometimes someone with endometriosis will get pregnant and something about the fluctuation in hormones will cause their symptoms to go away. And they will ultimately be kind of like in remission from endometriosis. And sometimes after the pregnancy, it continues to just be at bay. But also, sometimes people get pregnant and their endometriosis gets way worse. Sometimes people with endometriosis have horrific pregnancies because of their endometriosis. Sometimes people can't get pregnant because of their endometriosis. Ultimately, it doesn't cure it, and it's really upsetting that some doctors will flippantly suggest you bring an entire child into this world to cure your endometriosis. It doesn't cure it, and that's insane. Misconception number 6, insert diet here cures endometriosis. Okay, this is the last one like this, so let's just say it together. There is no cure to endometriosis. But also, there is an abundance of nutrition-related endometriosis misinformation out there. Ultimately, in my opinion, I think this is a result of diet culture and misogyny encroaching on chronic illness spaces. There is honestly conflicting anecdotal evidence about different diet changes helping endometriosis symptoms. Again, I think it's really important here to remember that endometriosis will look completely different from patient to patient. Bodies vary a lot. And there's also, a possibility of other health issues that are impacted by nutrition happening in the same patient. So I think first and foremost, we need to have a lot more nuance when we're discussing how diet could impact endometriosis than we do now. In a lot of spaces online, a lot of endo communities, there's a lot of discussion around nutrition that does not have a lot of nuance. Never eat this food, or this diet will heal you. I think this rhetoric can be really dangerous for a lot of different reasons. A stranger on the internet is not your medical provider, does not know all the details of your body and your situation, but also it can start to create a really unhealthy relationship with eating in general. Research has shown that there's a significant prevalence of body image issues and eating disorders among individuals with endometriosis. I think we should just have a lot more care and nuance when discussing nutrition and endometriosis. And I think this goes with all things. We should maybe make sure what we're putting out into the world and what we're sharing is based in research, or at the very least, if you're discussing your personal experience, you frame it that way and you say, this is what worked for me. And you remember that not everyone is the same. Got it? All right, that's all for the misconceptions. Let's move on to the next section of the video. Symptoms and life impact. So the most obvious and common symptom of endometriosis is chronic pelvic pain, but that in itself actually includes a lot of symptoms. And all those symptoms have little scientific names that for some reason I think are really interesting, and I can't help it. I need to include them in this video. I can't just say painful periods. I need to say dysmenorrhea. Okay, I should figure out how to say them, but I think they're cool. I see these words on my health records all the time. Yeah, I looked them up, and we're gonna say the fancy versions of these symptoms, because why not? Have a little fun, have a little whimsy, have a little scientific passion, if you will. I'm not really that smart scientifically, but lately chronic illness has me a little interested in stuff. And right now it's these words, and I am going to drop them on you now.
Dysmenorrhea.
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 Dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea is painful periods, dyspareunia is painful intercourse, dysuria is painful urination, and dyschezia is painful bowel movements. And yep, you heard that right. Painful poops. This illness is evil as Oh, one more fancy word that I forgot is menorrhagia, which is heavy bleeding during periods. Other symptoms that I do not know any fancy words for can include abdominal bloating, fatigue, GI issues like constipation and or diarrhea. Yes, you can have both. I know that from a friend. And nausea. All of these symptoms can be chronic, but they could also be dynamic or intermittent. They might occur at different points in a menstrual cycle. Endometriosis can also cause infertility, but it's also common to get pregnant with endometriosis. Speaking from experience, the uncertainty surrounding infertility can cause a lot of anxiety. Another symptom that's commonly reported in patients with endometriosis is brain fog. Brain fog is just a term to describe a range of cognitive impairments, like issues with memory, focus, clarity. It really does just feel like you're kind of foggy. Common comorbid conditions. First things first, what does comorbid mean in this context? A comorbid condition, or comorbidity, is a condition that commonly occurs alongside another condition. When an illness is a comorbidity of another illness, this doesn't necessarily mean that we know if one caused the other, if they were both caused by some other issue, if they're part of a bigger systemic issue. All we know is that they're commonly seen together in one patient. I just say that to remind you that when I list out these common comorbidities for endometriosis, I'm not saying that endometriosis causes these things or that these things cause endometriosis. I'm just saying they can occur together, and they commonly do. That being said, here are some comorbidities that may be more likely to show up in patients with endometriosis. adenomyosis, IBS and IBD, migraine, pelvic inflammatory disease, fibromyalgia, lupus, and other autoimmune conditions, depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue syndrome, and the list goes on. There are a lot of chronic conditions that are commonly experienced together, but that don't necessarily have scientific findings to explain the connection between them. For example, there are a lot of people like me that not only have endometriosis, but also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, and POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Another condition that's commonly seen with all those diagnoses is MCAS, or mast cell activation syndrome. Treatment methods and lifestyle adjustments. Okay, right at the top of this segment, once again, I have this spiel that's kind of repetitive, but I want to say managing endometriosis can be very personal because it is a very individualized thing. You should be managing it with the help of a care team or a medical provider. It's just really important to remember that there's nothing wrong with you if some of these things just don't work for you. There's nothing wrong with having a complex case, speaking from experience. I was diagnosed with deep infiltrating endometriosis 4 years ago. I've had 3 surgeries, and within those surgeries, a lot of different things were done. Excision, ablation, we removed my appendix, we did all sorts of things. At one point, my bowels were adhered to my pelvic wall and they had to separate them, a whole thing. But outside of that, I've also I've tried copious amounts of medications. I've tried every single birth control that I can take. Due to some other health stuff, I can't take every birth control, but anything I'm able to take, I've tried. Orilissa, pelvic floor therapy, cupping, massage. I've tried everything. Some things help, and so I've kind of like added them like tools to my toolbox. Nothing cured me. Nothing completely got rid of my pain, and that's where I'm at. And so I just want to normalize that treatment methods don't mean you're treating away all the pain. Sometimes it's just testing out different things that you may or may not add into your life to manage the pain. And there's nothing wrong with you if treatment methods that work for a lot of others don't work for you. Anyways, I want to list out some common treatment approaches that are used for managing endometriosis. As I said before, laparoscopic surgeries are considered the golden standard for diagnosing and treating endometriosis, but it would be very short-sighted to just end the conversation there. First of all, endometriosis commonly grows back after these surgeries, but also surgery is expensive and just a lot on the body. It's not accessible for everyone to get it once, let alone multiple times. So it's not necessarily like the end-all be-all at treating endometriosis. It goes beyond surgery a lot. So some other common suggestions for managing the pain and symptoms of endometriosis are pelvic floor therapy, birth control and other hormone therapy, nutritional changes, pain medications like narcotics and NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen, and also more holistic substances like CBD and THC. And there are tons of other treatments, whether it be medical, alternative, holistic, that I've seen applied to endometriosis management, like acupuncture, nerve blocks, all kinds of different herbs and supplements. I will say it can be hard to navigate. There's a lot out there, and not everything is for everyone. There are a lot of great things, and there are also a lot of predatory wellness brands that are capitalizing on our desperation to find some relief. Well, that was the basics of endometriosis. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any ideas for those future ENDO101 videos or other videos. Also, if you have endometriosis and you are open to sharing your story in the comments, I'm sure a lot of people would love to read that. I would as well. So go for it. Other than that, please share this video with your friends and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you for supporting my channel. Bye!